Tonight on CBC Vancouver News. The numbers are in. Metro Vancouver is on its way to its slowest housing sales in a century plus. Witnesses required.
This is really egregious political interference in medical decision-making.
Medical experts are critical of the province's new restrictions on safe supply. Medications must be taken under supervision. And final furlong?
If you'd shot me with an arrow in the heart, it wouldn't have been any worse.
Disbelief among BC's horse racing industry as government slashes funding from slot machines.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Lien Yeung. Vancouver's housing market continues to be slow, and with just 1 month left in the year, new numbers show the region will likely have the lowest sales numbers this century. And Justin McElroy joins us now. So, Justin, I think we've all seen the slowdown happen, but these numbers are really putting things into perspective.
Month after month, it has been slower than we've seen in quite some time in this region. And when we got the numbers for the Greater Vancouver Real Estate Board today, it showed another slow month, and we are now on pace where, absent some sort of giant spike in December, this is going to be the lowest month for property sales in the region this century. Now, when you look at what that means in terms of what the prices are for people trying to get into the market, it's lower than what the peak was 2 years ago. We take a look at this next chart, but it's not exactly at a place that many people might consider affordable. Detached homes still over $2 million, apartments $790,000 or so. This is for the greater Vancouver area, so it includes Burnaby, Richmond, other places. But again, we've been in this slowdown market for quite a while now, and where in the past you could expect 30, 40, maybe even 50,000 homes sold a year. Now it's less than 25,000, and again, on pace now where it's going to be the lowest this century.
Now, do we think there's anything that's likely to change the situation anytime soon? I mean, we're almost to the end of the year, but what do we think?
Yeah, in the future, you know, obviously, maybe things can happen in international relations, in terms of the interest rate, in terms of global demand. But there's nothing really on the table when you ask economists that you can look at that would really change the dynamic anytime soon.
When we look at where we were in terms of even monthly sales relative to pre-pandemic levels, we're down about 20%. So clearly, just I think largely a reflection of what we're seeing in the affordability front, the lack of certainty in the economy, and again, mortgage rates, while lower than they were the last couple of years, are still quite elevated relative to what we would have seen a few years ago.
You know, and a month from now, when all of the year-end wrap-up sort of conversations happen, we'll talk about this housing market again. We'll talk about this slower pace. But when people talk about it now, it's important to recognize that we're in historic, at least for this century, territory now when it comes to the amount of people buying homes or lack thereof.
That's right, indeed. Okay, our Justin McElroy with me in studio. Thanks, Justin. And meanwhile, for renters, new Statistics Canada shows rental prices in Metro Vancouver are also dropping, and dramatically in some cases. Two-bedroom units are down 11%. That's compared to its peak during the summer of 2023. And when you factor in inflation, that's a decrease of 15%. Three-bedroom units are down 17%. With inflation, that's more than 20%. The Statistics Canada report says a weakening real estate market may be forcing buyers into the rental market, and that the decline in immigration may also be a factor in the downturn. However, today's rental prices are still higher than monthly rental charges from 2019. And the province is adding further restrictions to the Safe Supply program, requiring all patients to take prescription opioids under the supervision of a health professional. As our Katie DeRosa reports, one addictions doctor worries politics are getting in the way of medical decisions.
The province is moving to further restrict the Safe Supply program.
We are helping to separate people from the illicit drug supply through prescribed alternatives program. At the same time, we know it's so important to make sure that these medications only land in the hands of those people for whom they are intended.
As of December 30th, all patients who rely on prescription opioids, such as hydromorphone or fentanyl patches, will have to take those drugs under the supervision of a pharmacist or health professional. Key exceptions include some in rural communities and people who can show that their work schedule does not allow them to go to a pharmacy several times a day. The move to witnessed safe supply was announced in February and initially only applied to new patients. It came in response to evidence that prescription opioids were not being consumed by the intended patients, but instead being diverted and trafficked. But one Victoria-based addictions doctor says the changes make it harder to access safer alternatives and risk pushing people back to potentially deadly street drugs.
This is really egregious political interference in medical decision making. It doesn't really support recovery. It doesn't really support people getting on with their lives. Being basically chained to a pharmacy all day long.
BC Conservative addictions critic, who herself battled addiction for years until going to treatment at 19, says the government's Safe Supply program keeps people in the cycle of addiction.
If the government was going to pay for my drugs and provide them to me for free, I probably wouldn't be standing before you right now.
The program was rolled out in March 2020 during the height of the pandemic. The government changed course earlier this year after leaked Ministry of Health slides showed that a significant portion of the opioids and fentanyl patches handed out by doctors and pharmacists are not going to those who need them, and instead being trafficked nationally and internationally. Osborne says the health ministry continues to investigate the dozens of bad actor pharmacies. Those pharmacies were alleged to be offering incentives to entice clients to get their safe supply drugs from them. Katie DeRosa, CBC News, Victoria.
The ER doctor behind a whistleblower lawsuit against Fraser Health Authority has settled her case. Caitlin Stockton alleged wrongful dismissal after she tried to warn patients about dire conditions in 2 hospitals where she worked. Stockton filed the claim in June, seeking $500,000 for wrongful dismissal and damages. She says she can't disclose the details of her settlement, but it allows her to continue advocacy around healthcare worker safety. And a 1BC party speaker was arrested for trespassing after supporters gathered on the University of Victoria campus Tuesday afternoon. UVic released a statement earlier in the day calling it an unsanctioned event. The party was promoting a documentary called Making a Killing that is yet to be released. It's facing strong disapproval by Indigenous communities for spreading denialism rhetoric about residential schools. 1BC party leader Dallas Brody was also escorted off campus property by police.
I think it's unfortunate that they're trying to divide people, that they're trying to, exploit and use misinformation.
Anything else that you think? Farnworth also said that caucus funds used by Brody for her film should not be used to promote and create division. And the man charged in a 2018 shooting that killed 2 people in Vancouver, including an innocent teenager, has been found guilty. Kane Carter was charged with 2 counts of second-degree murder on Monday. The victim, 15-year-old Alfred Wong, was killed while just sitting in the back of his parents' car on the way home from dinner. The other victim was 23-year-old Kevin Whiteside, the intended target. And it might be the end of live horse racing in Vancouver. The province will soon stop sharing revenue from slot machines with Hastings Racecourse. As our Pinky Wong reports, the news comes as a shock for those in the industry.
If you'd shot me with an arrow in the heart, it wouldn't have been any worse.
Last week, the province decided to stop providing slot machine revenue to BC's last operating horse track by January. Horses have been racing at the Hastings Park since 1892. Johnson says the industry had presented the province with a 3-year budget a few months back.
They didn't once come to us and say, listen, can you do with something less? Can you do something different?
He estimated the industry will be getting around $8 million less without the slots revenue, which will cut their operating costs to half.
Even if we get racing next year, we'll be running for purses less than half.
The minister says while she recognizes the long history of horse racing, the decrease in revenues and attendance also contributed to the decision.
It's a very difficult decision for government to make. It really speaks to the sustainability questions that have been raised about the BC horse racing industry for many years now.
In September, the Fraser Down racetrack in Surrey was closed after nearly 5 decades for redevelopment. The instability in the horse racing industry has left breeders frustrated.
They moved their mares and foals to Alberta because it was so unstable here in BC. And last month, in November, I lost 7 more boarders. Again, another $7,000 in revenue lost. We've had to lay off staff.
She says she may have to sell her farm and move if there's no more horse racing in Vancouver.
I'm just devastated. Our life's passion and work has gone into this. Even after the horse is done racing, they go on to show homes or become people's pets. That will be lost.
The horse racing industry will be meeting with a racecourse owner later this week. Johnson says whether the 2026 horse racing season will go ahead is still unknown. Pinky Wong, CBC News, Vancouver.
And it's a bittersweet December for an animal sanctuary in Summerland. Avian flu was detected on their property last month, forcing Critter Aid to euthanize some flocks. But as Brady Strachan reports, 2 of the sanctuary's prize peacocks have been spared.
They are not happy about the snow. This is not their favorite time of year.
For Nicolaj and Jake, the recent snowfall may have ruffled a few feathers, but the resident peacocks at Critter Aid don't know how good they have it. Spared from an avian flu call that's claimed all the other birds here.
There were 2 of us randomly jumping up and down in the middle of the street and crying because you're just overjoyed. You have this release of complete relief. And there was a lot of hard work that went into it, and it was worth it.
For nearly 4 decades, Critter Aid has been providing sanctuary for animals and birds on its rural property in Summerland. Last month, avian flu was detected, throwing the organization into a crash course on disease containment policies to reduce the spread of the H5N1 virus. Included in that, the need to cull all the chickens on the farm and a small flock of beloved ducks.
Charles was 18, and Martin was hatched here, and he was 12. So yes, it's a big part of our day that's missing, and it's not easy to do. It isn't those decisions that you are put on those crossroads.
Avian influenza is highly contagious and often spread by migrating birds. Over the past 4 years, just under 10 million birds in BC have died or been culled, many of them on commercial poultry farms. Nicolaj and Jake were spared because of strict quarantine measures and the fact their pens were far away from the infected birds. Stewart says this past weekend they got the good news, an exemption, one of only 14 granted in nearly 600 farm outbreaks.
We are elated that we have the chance to celebrate them being here this year. And then we have another foot in the other camp where we are definitely feeling the loss of animals that have been here. Our birds had been here for years.
With the outbreak now over, Critter Aid has reopened for animal rescues. Brady Strachan, CBC News, Kelowna.
An overnight snow in parts of BC's interior has prompted Environment Canada to remind drivers to prepare for winter conditions. This is an early morning look at Kamloops today. Looking pretty beautiful, actually. Much of the region had its first big snowfall of the season. The agency says snow will return tomorrow, and Trans-Canada Highway was closed for much of the day. There was a semi-truck that rolled over just east of Kamloops. Darius Madavi is here now with a first look at the weather. So Darius, it's pretty gorgeous if you can, stay safe on the roads out there.
That's right. And we have more snow on the way for parts of the interior, more rain for the coast, but snow at those higher elevations because freezing levels remain fairly low. A lot of moisture that is heading our way after a pretty calm day across the province that arrives from our northern areas tonight. And then continues to make its way down south, reaching the North Island by tomorrow morning and the South Island and Lower Mainland by tomorrow evening. We do have a couple fog warnings in place for parts of the southern interior, especially along the highway, Merritt to Kelowna, and up in the northwest and for the North Coast inland. So a few things to be watching, Leanne, but overall, we got more rain on the way, and we'll talk more about that later in the show.
Okay, we'll talk to you very soon. Thank you, Darius.
Thank you.
And it was all hands on deck at United Way today as they put together care packages for kids. What's inside? We'll tell you after the break. Welcome back. On Vancouver Island, some communities on the Mid-Island are calling for more resources to help the unhoused. As Claire Palmer reports, in Parksville and the Oceanside area, hundreds are left on the street with nowhere to go.
Inside the Salvation Army in Parksville is a soup kitchen, one of the only places in the small beachside city that provides refuge for those on the streets.
I'm sad. I'm sad for our community. The need is getting greater and greater.
Tina Nielsen is a concerned community member who does some outreach with those experiencing homelessness in Parksville. She says there's not nearly enough services for the amount of people in need.
It's very frustrating that we don't have adequate resources for our people. I guess I look at people on an individual level, so even if we could improve the lives for one person, then that's important that we make that effort to do that. But we've got hundreds of people who are suffering.
An Nanaimo-based nonprofit that runs weekly outreach services says there are no scheduled overnight shelters or regular daytime warming centers in Parksville.
Once again, another year of desperation and crisis in Oceanside.
Johnson says it's simply not enough.
You know, ultimately, people don't just need a jacket or a sleeping bag on the streets. They need somewhere safe to go and to be able to access shelter and warmth, especially when the temperature is that cold.
Nielsen says she's hoping people can have more sympathy for those on the streets and that operators and government can come together to find a solution.
I've always felt that if there was a dog on the side of the road, a puppy, it's emaciated, it's soaking wet, maybe it has medical needs, you'd probably have a number of people stop to help that animal. And that's great that people do, but if it's a human being there, people just drive by oblivious.
A point-in-time count found that an estimated 90 people in Parksville were unhoused, with more in the surrounding area. Claire Palmer, CBC News, Parksville.
And a company that runs a pulp mill on the island says it is permanently shutting down the facility, putting around 350 people out of work. Domtar says pulp operations at the mill in Crofton have been struggling for a while. It said over the past 18 months, employees have tried to reduce operational costs, but the company blames poor pricing for pulp and a lack of access to affordable wood fiber. Last year, Domtar announced it was indefinitely halting paper operations at the site, affecting around 75 employees at the time. And with Christmas just around the corner, many people are hanging up lights and setting up the Christmas tree. But if that involves a ladder, WorkSafe BC is urging you to be extra careful in the cold and unpredictable weather this time of year.
It's really important to pause and think. Do you have an understanding of the capacity of the ladder? Have you reviewed the manufacturer's instructions? Are you in proper anti-slip footwear? Can you maintain 3 points of contact at all times?
Perpick says last year workers made over 800 claims for ladder-related injuries. She says they see an increase in trips and falls during winter because of icy and slippery surfaces, strong winds, and harsh weather. Well, it is Giving Tuesday, the first Tuesday following Black Friday, where people are encouraged to donate to charity. The United Way of BC and Bank of Montreal employees are launching a campaign to help local families in need this season. Our Michelle Gomez went to Burnaby to check it out.
The giving spirit is in the air here at the United Way headquarters. Volunteers are packaging kits for children and families in need. 1 in 6 kids in our province live in poverty, according to a recent report from a child advocacy group. That's almost 150,000 children. Organizers say a small gift like this can make a world of difference.
Receiving kits like this, it's like a warm light, a bright spot in a season that otherwise can be very daunting and anxiety-ridden for a lot of folks.
Having an ability to provide these kids, these winter essentials that they can use, and able to use these gift cards to buy maybe a toy that might not be possible.
And these will go to over 100 children in need across the province. Michelle Gomez, CBC News, Vancouver.
And a stunning day in Revelstoke where snow landed overnight. The sunshine visible to the south of the city. What is on the way? Well, Darius has that full provincial forecast coming up. Hundreds of Indigenous leaders from across the country have gathered in Ottawa for an annual meeting of the Assembly of First Nations. And on day one, tension was in the air. The chiefs are angry with Prime Minister Mark Carney and his Liberal government, saying the Prime Minister failed to consult meaningfully with them on the recent pipeline deal with Alberta. But Carney is insisting consultations will happen. The CBC's Rafi Boudjikanian reports.
Mark Carney stepped in front of a tough crowd this afternoon at the Assembly of First Nations, the AFN setting the ground for a confrontation early on in the day when its chiefs unanimously voted to withdraw the new pipeline deal between Canada and Alberta. That resolution moved by a chief in BC.
Whether you support the pipeline or not, we can all agree that any government must seek our free and prior and informed consent before any proposed projects take place on our land and waters. This MOU provides no such assurances.
In his prepared remarks, Carney did not directly address the resolution, but he said there would be no pipeline without First Nations approval, citing recently passed federal legislation on major projects.
That process of consultation only starts once projects are referred as possibilities to the Major Projects Office. Under the legislation, there must be consultation consistent with free, prior, and informed consent before a project can be designated in Canada's national interest.
Still, questions from the chiefs forced them to speak about the elephant in the room.
The Assembly of First Nations voted unanimously to affirm the North Coast Declaration and rejection of any proposed pipeline to BC's coast today. Thank you. Do you respect the direction of the rights and title holders?
I use this phrase, necessary but not sufficient. It's important. It means something is necessary, but it doesn't decide what actually happens because everything has to be lined up in order for things to move forward.
There are some First Nations who are looking for a pipeline to be developed.
There are people that are in favor of oil and gas development. It's just we have to look at ways to be included for the long term, the length of the project.
Carney also mentioned today that he intends to meet with the Northern Coast BC chiefs and convene another meeting with provincial and territorial premiers as well as AFN chiefs, though it's not clear whom among the latter would be included on the guest list. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
Well, the numbers are in, and it appears the amount of British Columbians spending Black Friday in the United States was down drastically from last year. This comes at a time when many businesses there are coping with a lack of Canadian customers. Our Troy Charles has more from across the border.
It seems many British Columbians used Black Friday as another opportunity to show they're on Team Canada.
We were down about 34% this holiday weekend compared to the holiday weekend last year.
According to the Border Policy Research Institute at Western Washington University, last year, 30,000 BC-plated vehicles entered the U.S. through the Linden, Sumas, and Blaine border crossings over the American Thanksgiving weekend. This year, that number was down to 20,000. The university says the 34% drop is right in step with the year-over-year decline, Canadians making a point with their wallet ever since the United States sweeping tariffs and ensuing trade war with Canada.
Dyer does come into my mind when I think Point Roberts and even Blaine and Sumas.
But it's not as if Canadians didn't have money to spend this Black Friday.
It was a really successful week, especially Black Friday for the Canadian retailer.
Many shoppers choosing to find deals at home online.
We saw sales across Canada online grow 6% on Black Friday, reaching about $862 million. Now that is US dollars in spend.
Back in Bellingham, the hits to the bottom line are adding up.
You have the greater economy, you have lack of Canadian shoppers, maybe you have other cross-border tariff-related costs that are impacting your business.
It appears relief is not imminent, with tariffs still in place and trade talks between Canada and the U.S. stalled.
They can't wait for their Canadian customers to return when they're ready.
Troy Charles, CBC News, Vancouver.
As the holiday season approaches, many shoppers may be looking for deals online. Well, there's a new alarming trend that could cost you more than it saves: fake e-shops. And our very own Laura Lynch, the host of CBC's What on Earth, fell prey to that scam when she was sent a fake Mountain Equipment Co-op email that promised 80% off hiking socks.
I just sat down with my cup of coffee and looked at my emails, and there was one from Mountain Equipment Co-op, or so I thought, with its Black Friday deals. And I had been looking to buy some new socks for hiking, and I clicked on it. It took me into what looked like the MEC site. And I searched for the socks that I like, and they were, in fact, on sale for a whopping 80% off. And that should have been my first clue.
According to the Canadian Anti-Fraud Centre, there have been more than 20,000 victims of fraud alone. And with new sophisticated technologies, it can be hard to tell what's legitimate or fake. And to tell us more about these e-commerce scams, we're joined by Roger Gale. He's with the BCIT Industrial Network Cybersecurity Program. So thanks for joining us, Roger. How common are some of these scams?
Way more common than we might think. I think the last statistic I saw was around 41 million, and it's going up quite a bit.
Wow, 41 million. Okay, that's a ton of them. And why are they popping up? Why are we seeing so many of these now?
Well, right now we're all looking to live in the era of higher costs, and so good deals, we get attracted to them. And if something's too good to be true, well, sometimes that attracts people to buy things.
Right, and does the rise of AI, you think, have anything to do with it? Some of these sites look quite robust, actually.
Yeah, I think that what's happened is that scams have always been around. And so this type of a fake or e-shop has not been uncommon in the past, but now we can do more faster, and that's like anything in the technology industry. We're just able to do these things a lot faster. So AI can go out and find the inexpensive domains, can set up the storefront for you, can do all of that in the background, and so you don't have all the extra work you need to build all that front end.
Right, and is it possible for authorities to try to get scams like these under control, or something, you know, like the Shopifys of the world? Or can we get that under control in some way? I mean, 41 million.
Yeah, I think so, but it involves us doing the same thing in reverse. So we do look at AI as and its ability to detect these types of scams as well. But I also think that education is really important as well. So I was reading an RBC report that came out on November 25th, I believe it was, where we see that 86% of people are confident that they can detect the scam. But the problem with that statistic is 1 in 4 of us has been affected or has had someone take advantage of us in the form of a scam.
Right. So what do you think are some of the things that shoppers should be looking out for then in order for us to detect these scams?
The scammers try to attract us with the low prices, but in addition to that, they try to give us a sense of urgency. We need to get this, to buy this now. And if that sense of urgency is there and the deal looks like it's too good to be true, then it's probably not too good to be true.
And what do you think people should do, say, very quickly, if they do fall victim to a scam?
Well, one thing that I would do is if something's too good to be true and I buy it, I take a screenshot of it, even if it's a legitimate company. And then the second thing is they need to report it. The RCMP have a fraud division. It's important to get all of these scams reported so that we can get tracking, find out where they are, and try and bring some people to justice if we can.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's hope that is indeed the case. All right. Appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. Roger Gale, he's with BCIT's Industrial Network Cybersecurity Program.
Thank you.
The search for survivors after tropical storms devastate parts of Indonesia, Sri Lanka, and Thailand. The efforts to get to cut-off communities. That's next. Vladimir Putin is accusing European countries of preventing a ceasefire for a war he started nearly 4 years ago. It comes as the Russian president met with an American delegation in Moscow, as the CBC's Chris Brown reports.
So pleased to see you.
A smiling Vladimir Putin welcomed the American delegation to the Kremlin, having already said he rejects much of what's in the latest plan they came to present. But as Ukraine's fate was deliberated and its territory potentially dissected, Ukraine's president was on the other side of Europe, in Ireland, not invited.
We are waiting for the results. I think that the most sensitive things and the most difficult questions, or questions with the challenges, is about territories.
Ukrainians believe strongly that the initial deal U.S. President Donald Trump was pushing was filled with Russian demands to hand over territory and diminish their political sovereignty. The Europeans pushed for changes, prompting an angry tirade from the Russian president just before meeting the Americans. They put forward demands that are absolutely unacceptable for Russia, he said, accusing Europeans of obstructing Trump from achieving a breakthrough in peace talks. We're not planning to fight Europe, I've said 100 times, but if Europe suddenly decides to wage war against us and starts it, we're ready right now, he said. While Putin often threatens a continent-wide war to try to scare his adversaries, his goal this time may be to undermine support for Ukraine and to pressure Volodymyr Zelensky.
3/4 of Ukrainians are not ready for peace at any price.
But this Ukrainian analyst says the country's military and civil society will not accept Putin's terms.
If you put more pressure on President Zelensky, he will sign and everything is going to work fine. No.
Not an easy situation, let me tell you. What a mess.
Zelensky said he's concerned if Donald Trump can't resolve that mess, he could lose interest and abandon mediation efforts, which may be what Putin is aiming for. Chris Brown, CBC News, London.
Officials say the number of people dead from flooding and landslides in Southeast Asia has risen to more than 1,300. The catastrophic conditions were caused by days of heavy monsoon rains last week. Dave Grunebaum reports.
Local authorities as well as environmentalists say that deforestation may have made the damage from the floodwaters even worse. They're talking about legal deforestation from mines and palm oil plantations, as well as illegal logging. Keep in mind that forests can be a protective barrier to help mitigate the damage from storms like this. So now there are people in Indonesia calling for a review of government policy, as well as investigations into the potential for illegal logging. More than 700 people are dead on the ground on Sumatra Island. Hundreds of people are missing. Rescue teams are struggling to get to some of these hard-hit remote areas. They are using choppers, but these crews cannot get to areas quickly enough. Landslides have made many roads impassable. Bridges have collapsed into the rivers. And in addition to that, cell towers are down in so many places. So authorities in the central cities cannot communicate with a lot of these remote villages to ask, do you have enough food? Do you have enough water? Are there people in your villages that need urgent medical care? So there are real concerns that some people who survived the initial floodwaters may not survive in the days ahead because they do not get aid quickly enough. There have been calls for President Prabowo to ask for international help, but so far he has not done so. Now in Sri Lanka, the government did call for international aid, and they have been getting some on the ground from Pakistan, India, and Japan. And the Sri Lankan diaspora around the world, including in Canada, has been coming together to raise money to help with the aid efforts. On the ground in Sri Lanka, more than 400 people are dead, hundreds of people are missing. Military-led rescue teams have been going around, often in boats, pulling people who are stranded on their roofs and the second floors of their houses and rescuing them. It's a difficult situation there too, just like in Indonesia. Landslides have covered roads, made them impassable. Also, bridges have collapsed into rivers. Hospitals have been swamped by flood waters. It doesn't look like it's going to get easy in the days ahead with rescue and recovery efforts because there is rain in the forecast for Sri Lanka. Dave Grunebaum reporting for CBC News, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia.
The weather update is brought to you by BC Cancer Foundation. Give today to bring more progress and possibilities to patients and their families. Your donation changes everything.
And Darius Madavi is back with another look at the full weather forecast. But Darius, we're starting on the East Coast first, hey?
That's right. Big storm happening in Atlantic Canada. They call it a nor'easter, which is a big low pressure system coming up from the south. They call that because the winds blow from the northeast. Nor'easter. Makes sense. Now, heavy snow, heavy rain coming to many of these areas as that storm continues to make its way north. Also seeing some strong winds develop, especially for Newfoundland. Now, some places seeing both a mix of rain and snow, especially in Nova Scotia. Heavy rain, we have rainfall warnings in place, snowfall warnings, winter storm warnings, and wind warnings. So a mix of a bit of everything across Nova Scotia. And it's a similar story up in Newfoundland as well. Actually, Newfoundland has the winter storm warnings, not Nova Scotia. My bad there. Now, that will continue into tomorrow, especially for Newfoundland, and then we'll continue to taper off throughout the day. But first, wind gusts reaching up to 100 kilometers per hour for southern sections. So definitely a big storm happening, especially because they're also getting, in some places in Atlantic Canada, as much as 50 centimeters of snow. So lots to be watching there, but also a lot happening over here in BC. One of the big stories that I wanted to mention is with regards to temperatures. Now, up in the northeast, for instance, so first of all, much of the interior right now, a little bit warmer than normal, but up in the northeast, temperatures tomorrow in places like Fort St. John come to about +3. Very pleasant, much warmer than normal, but in just a couple days by Friday, those temperatures drop all the way down to -16. So quite a dramatic swing there. That's a lot of Arctic air heading down towards eastern Canada and really just grazing northeastern BC. Meanwhile, in terms of precipitation, nothing too exciting really happening. We do have some breaking into parts of the interior, making its way down parts of the coast, but for the most part, we're talking mostly light showers, a few flurries breaking into the interior, nothing too crazy. We have seen a fair bit of snow in the last couple of days, yesterday mostly, in parts of the interior, especially places like Kamloops, where some of that did stick. Some higher elevations in the Okanagan, definitely seeing some snow sticking, but like downtown Kelowna, for instance, not so much. And then if we take a look at our conditions for tomorrow, again, most areas mainly cloudy tomorrow, not seeing that sunshine that we saw today, but not much in the way of heavy precipitation, no warnings in place or anything like that, except for a fog advisory that we looked at earlier. And here's our 5-day forecast, Lien. Get ready for a little bit of precipitation on the way with a brief break in the rain tomorrow, Thursday afternoon.
Okay, it still looks, you know, pretty gloomy.
A little bit.
That's okay, all right. Thank you for that, Darius.
Thank you.
A CBC News investigation has uncovered that outlawed nicotine pouches not approved for sale by Health Canada are still readily available in corner stores across the country. Last year, the federal government tightened the rules on the smoking cessation products in an effort to make them less attractive to young people. Nicotine pouches are only allowed to be sold in pharmacies in mint flavor, but as Ithil Musa shows us, that wasn't the case.
This is a tobacco-free nicotine pouch. They are heavily regulated in Canada to help smokers quit. Instead, they're increasingly being used by teens. And despite the federal government's efforts in limiting their sale to pharmacies, we had no problem buying them at corner stores across the country.
Hi, do you guys have any Zyn?
We used hidden cameras and went to corner stores in Toronto, Halifax, Montreal, and Vancouver. With no questions asked, we were able to buy heavy-dose nicotine pouches in banned flavors. We also came across numerous Canadian online retailers selling all other sorts of unauthorized brands of nicotine pouches. Last year, the federal government tightened the rules in an effort to deter youth. Nicotine pouches can only be legally sold to adults in pharmacies, in mint or menthol flavor, and at 4 milligram doses, about the equivalent of smoking 2 cigarettes. But the new rules don't seem to be stopping youth from buying them illegally.
The problem is that we've targeted them at kids. When you have gummy bear flavors or cola or some of these marketing messages, it's not something a 50-year-old smoker looks to use to help them to quit. It's something a 15-year-old grabs on their way to the party.
We reached out to Zyn's parent company, who made clear to CBC News that their products are not authorized for sale in Canada and that they're working with law enforcement to stop illicit trade.
I was completely demotivated.
Queen's University student Ashley Biswanger started using nicotine pouches as a teenager as a way to stop vaping. And she worked her way up to taking 50 milligram pouches 8 times a day.
I'd be in class thinking about them. I would be driving, thinking about them I wanted to go home to use them.
The bottom line is that they need to do retailer checks. They need to be showing up to these stores and seeing who's selling them.
Health Canada says it's managed more than 300 cases related to the sale or advertising of unauthorized nicotine pouches since last August, including on-site visits and seizing products. Ithil Musa, CBC News, Toronto.
And for the first time, the World Health Organization is backing GLP-1 drugs for the treatment of obesity. They're sold under brand names like Ozempic and Mounjaro. As Jennifer LaGrassa explains, some hope it will make the drugs more accessible.
The World Health Organization is boosting the legitimacy of GLP-1 drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy.
These new medicines are a powerful clinical tool.
Already recommended to treat diabetes, the WHO is now endorsing them to treat obesity too, alongside exercise and a healthy diet.
Obesity is one of the most serious public health challenges of our time.
Globally, more than 1 billion people are considered obese. Last year alone, 3.7 million people died from obesity-related conditions like heart disease or diabetes. The Canadian scientist who discovered the hormone used in the medications applauds the WHO's move.
I think this additional scrutiny of the totality of the evidence by WHO will add weight to the importance of treating obesity seriously.
A recent survey suggests 1.4 million Canadians are already taking a GLP-1. In Canada, the drugs require a prescription, and the cost usually isn't covered for obesity treatment.
On average, I'm spending about $500 a month.
For the last decade, Lisa Schaefer has been using a GLP-1 to manage her weight. She wants the medication paid for those who really need it.
What's really heartbreaking is we're seeing more often people going, guess what? I'm formally diagnosed with having diabetes, which means now my medication is covered. We shouldn't be that excited to get another really serious chronic condition to get the treatment that we actually deserve.
And while these drugs are having their moment in mainstream culture, experts say they're not a quick fix.
So these are drugs that,
with side effects like muscle loss and vitamin deficiency possible.
If you're thinking about, there's an event coming and you just need to lose some weight prior to that event, I mean, these meds are not for those patients.
The WHO says access and affordability are still big hurdles, with the drugs projected to reach less than 10% of those who could actually benefit by 2030. Jennifer LaGrassa, CBC News, Toronto.
Researchers have been busy collecting breath samples from nearly 100 North Atlantic right whales. We'll tell you why after the break.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and this is your CBC Inbox.
This Friday, December 5th, join us at 700 Hamilton Street in Vancouver for CBC's Make the Season Kind in support of local food banks across BC. The event is extra kind this year and features 2 live concerts and festive activities. Also, you can meet your favorite CBC personalities and special guests. To find out more and how you can give, visit cbc.ca/kindbc.
Well, it turns out the spray from whale blowholes may contain important information about their health. Researchers are using new methods to collect the breath of North Atlantic right whales. The CBC's Francis Willick has that.
Measuring the health of live North Atlantic right whales usually involves studying their external appearance, how thin they are, or the condition of their skin. Now, researchers have developed a way to obtain biological samples in a non-invasive way. Scientists at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution in Massachusetts have been using drones to collect the spray, or breath, of one of the planet's largest creatures. The drone carries a petri dish and hovers above a swimming whale until it surfaces for breath. After the spray falls on the petri dish, the drone flies back to a nearby boat for researchers to swab and preserve the sample.
And we stay about 10 feet over the surface of the water, so we don't get close to the animals at all, and they don't appear to notice the drone at all.
Miller says collecting samples by drone is less stressful for the whales. Previously, researchers collected spray by extending a pole from a boat to catch it. By analyzing the spray, researchers found that thin whales hosted bacteria that can cause infections in mammals, and robust whales had bacteria that was associated with fatty oils.
We discovered that the different types of bacteria in the breath of North Atlantic right whales are linked to their health. And this is really exciting because we may have just found another way to conduct health checkups of these critically endangered whales.
Miller says future research on whale breath could look at viruses and fungi. Francis Willick, CBC News, Halifax.
How cool. Scientists just thinking up new and novel ideas all the time. Very neat. All right, that's it for us. Thanks for being with us on CBC Vancouver News at 6. This newscast available on CBC Gem, on YouTube as well, our website, cbc.ca/BC. I'll be back with Darius with your next local news at 11 o'clock, right after the National. I'm Lien Yeung. Have a good night.